God bless you. It's great again to connect with you. We're in the last section now of chapter 7 of Ecclesiastes, looking at, in particular, verses 26 through 29. I believe it's 4 verses here. Um, Again, in the beginning of this book, there were 8 verses, then it went down to 1 verse per session until it went up to 6, 4, and now it's 4 again. So it doesn't really, 1 verse is just as powerful as 7 verses, as we have seen. And Solomon was really hitting each nail on the head. Powerful. Solomon must have really been seeing something in all the studies that he did, the sciences as well as the art. 2 major areas of study, even in our world. And there are many other areas, I'm quite sure, that are just as wide, probably not as wide as the art and the sciences, but at the same time, what Solomon found out as he studied, as he pursued wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, there's something that he found out that was really very much unfathomable. And he even states that, even in our last session, we looked at that. But in this session here, in this particular passage, the teacher here is showing us that wisdom guards against immoral and sinful individuals, immorality and sinfulness. And even in our day and time, immorality that is here today. Now, I'm not going to say that the immorality of I don't know what it was in the days of Lot, in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, or in the days of the 5 cities of the plain. Two are mentioned, Sodom and Gomorrah, and even the city Zor. If you read the account quite clearly, there were 3 names, but there were 2 more, and they were all very simple. But uh, where the men of God or the man of God and his family were situated was in Sodom. Couldn't live in all 5 cities. I don't think that's why Sodom is so pronounced, and it's in our face, so to speak. Saying that during that time was any worse than it is today, I just don't know. It's bad enough today. So we all know what immorality is, and how immoral people are living, and how sinful men have become. And can you imagine that the world to come, when if the Lord tarries, how more immoral and sinful it's going to be? But Solomon here is saying that wisdom helps us guard against immorality and against sinfulness. And you'll notice here in these 4 verses that Solomon um, targets it at people. And when I say people, women and men, because sin and immorality don't stay in artifacts or vessels. It doesn't affect the cup. It doesn't affect um, the thing that we have around us. What sinfulness does, what sin affects, what immorality, which is against sin, affects, is male and female, men and women, girl or individual. Okay, so let's just read these 4 verses again from the King James Version, and the same 4 verses from the Jewish text, and we can then have a look at what Solomon here is really saying, not only alluding to, but also saying. There are 2 areas here that Solomon also wants to point out, and I'm just going to say it as it is here in relation to what he is focusing on. And it was very much prominent in his day and time, even though, again, it is prominent again in our day and time. The first point here that Solomon is saying, because when we read it, we're going to see that he is focusing on particular things. One, the immorality of or the immoral woman is more bitter than death. The immoral woman is more bitter. I would want to also say the immoral man is more bitter than death. But let's just keep it in regards to what the scripture here is saying, and I will let you widen it out best, because some people out there, they really want to kind of catch catch me or catch others, say that you don't think, or there are men who don't think much of women or think very bad of women. And that's not the case here at all, because just as our women are immoral, they are very, very bad, immoral men. And, and I would even go so far as to say probably worse than some. Okay, so let's just put that on the table. I think that Solomon here, even though it's written within his day and time or whatever was going on then, but it's very much for men as well as for women. Okay, and the second point here is that he says here, the teacher here is saying that the sinful man represents the whole human race, the whole human. So let's read verses 26, 27, 28, and 29. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, and then we read the same passage as I've said before from the Jewish text. And I find more bitter than death the woman, whose heart is snares and nets, and her hand as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. Behold, verse 27. This have I found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account. 28. Which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Verse 29. Amen. Lo, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. And we read the same passage from the Jewish text, verse 26. I found more bitter than death the woman who is a trap, whose heart is a snare, and whose hands are like prison chains. The man who pleases God will escape from her, but the sinner will be caught by her. I have found this, says the preacher, Kohelet, adding one thing to another to reach a conclusion. I searched a long time without finding it. One man in 1,000 I have found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Verse 29. This is the only thing I have found, that God made human beings upright, but they have devised many schemes, many inventions. Now let me just go quickly at this. I don't want to give back as much time back to you so that you can again read these things, look at it, meditate on it, pray, go to God, seek his guidance in his word. The preacher here realized that he lived in the midst of a fallen race. Just like we've got to understand, we must realize that we're living amongst a fallen race. We are living amongst men who are limited. And we must also know that we're not only living amongst those who are limited, but we are also limited because we are also of the human race. Right? He began this portion here with a specific example, one that was painfully personal, then to conclude in a general truth. Commentators view the woman in verse 26. Now, let me just read what a particular commentators have said. Some view the woman in verse 26 as a representation of the pursuit of wisdom and understanding, or the wisdom of the world. However, Solomon's obsession and experience with women, and you must remember he had 1,000 and concubines, convinces us that he was speaking literally here of the dangers of pursuing and falling for immoral women. He was describing the dangers of sexual immorality. Thus, men and women alike who live in an age of sexual promiscuity will wisely heed this warning. It is important to be familiar with the facts behind this passage to fully understand the king's perspective. Scripture tells us that Solomon had a fondness for women, especially foreign wives. These women worshiped pagan gods, and sadly, they captured Solomon's heart and turned him away from the Lord to their heathen gods and to their heathen idols. The consequences of Solomon's fleshly surrender to these women wives would have or would leave a deep bitterness in his heart, a bitterness that is exposed in person. So here, I believe, is a man, is an individual who is regretting a lot of what he did. He's remembering the things of what he has done, and remembering also that it diverted his attention away from the Lord. He has sinned. He has allowed pagan worship to come into his land, which was totally against the law of Jehovah, the law of Elohim. I think we've got to agree with that. The preacher here, Solomon, his statement that the seductive woman is more bitter than death is striking. In Ecclesiastes, the king revealed his feelings about death. Death was his feared and hated enemy. It would bring an end to his accomplishments and achievements and leave his estate behind for someone who was unworthy of the inheritance. So you've got to look at and kind of understand that he had children. One of his sons, he's probably his eldest son, Rehoboam, took over, but was he up to the task of being the king that Solomon wanted him? And again, he probably would live by the examples of his father. And he, Solomon, knowing the way how he lived, he probably was not very happy with his lifestyle. We've got to put that into the mix. We've got to understand what's going on here, what may have happened in the senior life of Solomon. Solomon felt that it was grossly unfair that he, the wealthiest and wisest king, was doomed to die like every other human. He strongly hated them, yet he felt even stronger disdain for the immoral woman. Her seduction is more bitter than death itself. So we can understand what's going on in a lot more could be said. And really, you need to really read this and do a little bit of study again for yourself. 5 minutes, 10 minutes of me doing and sharing with you cannot. I'm doing a lot of injustice to the scriptures here. And that's why I always, and I will always encourage you, the individual, to do further study for yourself, to find out really what's going on within the mind of Solomon. Even though we may not, we will never know that, but God can help us to understand. And that is so very much needed. The second point here is that sinful men represent the whole human race. Solomon, through research and observation, which we know he did to a great extent, revealed some disturbing truths about the human race. Two things here. One, Solomon searched to understand both wisdom and wickedness. He genuinely wanted to understand what makes a person perform senseless, sinful deeds. He wanted to understand what makes a person, and he still didn't find it out. Yeah, he still didn't find it out. And two, Solomon discovered a tragic fact. All human beings were sinful. People are wicked and they are beyond understanding. Even more tragic, there is no explanation for their despicable, ungodly conduct. There is no explanation in all of his study. He not only studied the flowers and the herbs of the field, he not only studied the trees, he not only studied animal behavior. There's a lot of things he studied. But when it came to people, man, that must have blown his mind away with all of the wisdom that he had, the understanding and the knowledge. He still could not fathom out mankind. And you, every now and again, you sit in amazement of the behavior of some people, don't you? You sometimes wonder how men, both in and out of church, in the world of politics, in the world of business, finance, in the world of um, of science, in the world of the arts, there are people there who just blow your mind. You have to sit down and take a deep breath to wonder how could they behave in such a way or how they could say such things. It just blows your mind. And if it blows your mind away, can you imagine Solomon, the wisest, most knowledgeable, and the man of understanding, yet he couldn't fathom out. But you know what? What we need to do and what we have to do is really place ourselves and every individual that and know that we don't, we're going to place them in the hand of God. We're going to place them in the hand of God. Because only God can help and can sort out the problems of individuals. Never mind the problems of humanity. Never mind the problems of humanity. Only God can sort out individuals. May God bless you. It's been a pleasure just going through chapter 7, and I trust with you, and I trust that He will call you to go back, just like He has called me every now and again to go back, read again over the scriptures, read again over the chapters that I have done at any one particular time. Even then, I may not fully understand, but I seek, as Solomon sought, I seek to know wisdom, to understand.